Welcome to the Multicultural Mindset broadcast. Your host is Dr. Laverne H. Collins, a licensed professional counselor, award-winning trainer, and keynote speaker. Dr. Collins is the author of Overlooked: Counselor Insights for the Unspoken Issues in Black American Life. Dr. Collins has also been a featured monthly columnist in the American Counseling Association's Counseling Today magazine with her Honoring Diversity column. Now, here's Dr. Collins.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Multicultural Mindset. I am your host, Laverne H. Collins, and so glad to welcome you today. As always, we have another exciting, interesting, important topic to talk about today, and that is the topic of anxiety in Black women. Now, this is important because women are statistically more likely to experience anxiety disorders and to report higher levels of anxiety in general than men. Studies show that women are nearly, check this out, twice as likely, in fact, to be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder in their lifetime. And when you begin to think about Black women and other women of color, there's just a number of other things that come into play there. You have to think about hormonal shifts, which are experienced by Black women differently. Social and cultural factors, certainly a lot of differences there. Stress, coping mechanisms, just so many things. And I am so pleased today to have as my guest a woman who has studied this, has learned with skill and with excellence this topic of anxiety and Black women. So it's my pleasure to introduce today Tamika L. Muhammad. Tamika is a licensed professional counselor, a mental health educator and advocate who is also a Muslim dedicated to helping Black women navigate anxiety, burnout, and emotional wellness. With over a decade of experience in the mental health field, she specializes in culturally responsive therapy and wellness programs that empower Black women to heal, to set boundaries, and to reclaim their peace. Now, right there. Now, that's an anxiety remedy right there. Set boundaries and reclaim your peace. Tamika has a private practice called the Courage to Cope Counseling Services. In addition to a private practice, Tamika is now expanding her work into schools and public spaces, offering wellness support for teachers. And my goodness, that is a need, and helping to combat burnout in the education field in general. She's also committed to raising awareness about the Black maternal health crisis, providing educational webinars to equip Black mothers and Black healthcare professionals with knowledge and with resources that support maternal mental well-being. Now, Tamika herself is a former educator, and she understands firsthand the unique pressures that Black women face, from societal expectations to generational stigma around mental health and other things. She's just committed to continuing the conversation about mental health in the Black community, and she's committed to creating spaces where women feel seen and supported and empowered to prioritize their well-being. And when she's not leading transformative conversations about mental health, you can find her exploring new meditation practices, practicing yoga, and enjoying time with her friends and family. So please today join me in welcoming Tamika Muhammad as our special guest. Hey, Tamika, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I am excited about today's conversation. And as always, here at the Multicultural Mindset, what we're all about is providing services with cultural understanding, with cultural relevance, and with cultural humility. So when we talk about anxiety, anxiety, tell me if you would agree with this. I think anxiety is one of those topics where if we're not careful, we just lump everybody together and call anxiety anxiety.
Absolutely.
Not always recognizing nuances, specifically for Black women.
Mhm.
If women already have more anxiety than men, imagine, and now that you'll tell us about the anxiety presentations and even rates of anxiety, if that is that higher for Black women than white women. But we just want to dig into this, and we just want to draw on the work that you have done. You provide these topics in trainings to counselors and communities. So let me dive right in. Um, what are some unique ways, first of all, that anxiety shows up in Black women that other people might not recognize as being anxiety?
There are a few ways. And one of the ways that I want to emphasize during our time here are the physical manifestations of anxiety, the headaches, the stomach aches, the extreme tiredness, also the irritability. Oftentimes we go to our doctors with these symptoms, and the doctor will say, there's nothing wrong with you, right? But if we have to recognize that perhaps it is anxiety. And if it's anxiety, then we recognize and then we remedy it. If I have a headache, if I'm experiencing anxiety and I have a headache, but I don't know it's anxiety, what am I going to do? I'm going to take something for my headache. I'm going to take something for my stomach ache. But perhaps what we need to do is, okay, if this is anxiety, put in coping mechanisms to then deal with the anxiety, right? Opposed to actually having to get the medication. So those are some, and irritability. A lot of times, I know we've heard this before. Oh, she has an attitude. We hear that often.
Yes, yes. Black women get a bad rap for attitude all the time, right?
Put into this box. No one ever says maybe she's anxious, right? And I know anxiety is a big word, it's a buzzword these days, but we didn't make it up. We didn't we didn't make up
Right.
anxiety. And oftentimes it's like Black women and anxiety, huh? What's that? Even in our field of counseling, the research is sparing. It's rare to find research done on Black women and anxiety when anxiety has been it's been here with us, right? And even since COVID, anxiety, the change, the increase in anxiety has been drastic. I think it's over 300%. I could be wrong. But it's been a
Wow.
drastic change, an uptick in anxiety diagnosis. And I also want to make a distinction between just having anxiety and an anxiety diagnosis. Anyone can, anxiety is a natural response. Just because you have anxiety doesn't mean now you need to be diagnosed. No, we need to recognize maybe this is anxiety. The headache may be a tension headache, the stomach ache. So if we are able to recognize, then we can properly remedy what's going on with us.
Yes, yes. Wow. Headaches, stomach aches, and the presentation of tension and agitation can be symptoms of anxiety that go completely missed. And in today's society and historically, haven't Black women had a lot of reasons to be tense and agitated?
Absolutely. Mhm.
You know, my mother used to call it bad nerves when she was tense and agitated. And um, that's all they knew to call it. Well, my nerves are just bad. Leave me alone. My nerves are bad. That's
And and I'm glad you said that because that's what we're more familiar with. They're getting on my nerves or bad nerves. That's a more familiar term than anxiety. But we say it often. Oh, they're on my nerves, or her nerves are bad. Her nerves are bad. We say that often. And the word for it is anxiety. Not a bad
anxiety.
thing. We didn't make it up again, but it's a
Right.
natural response to certain things.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, I'm thinking, since we're talking about generations and how our elders have talked about anxiety as bad nerves. At the same time, historically, Black women have been praised for their strength and for their resilience. But can you talk a bit about how this expectation of being strong and resilient impacts a Black woman's mental health, especially when it comes to anxiety?
All right. I know there's this big trend now that, we don't want to be strong Black women anymore, but I think it's important to embrace who you are. We are strong, but we also define that as well, right? I think being a strong Black woman, and I know we've been characterized that way, but we define what that looks like. And oftentimes we're characterized as that strong Black woman because we're often left to do things on our own, right? We have to be the smartest one in the room, right? And oftentimes there's a misconception that we cannot ask for help. And we also isolate ourselves, right? And that's where we get into trouble. Anything needs support. But oftentimes we do all of these things. We're mom, we go to work, we go to school, we do this, we do that, we do a multitude of things as women in general, but especially as Black women, the difference often is we don't have support. We don't have support in place, right? There's a tendency that we can do this all by ourselves. Sometimes we can, but having to do that 24/7 all the time, that's where we get into the severity of anxiety, right? Having to shoulder everything on your own with no support. Sometimes we don't ask for it. Sometimes it may not be there, right? The isolation and the doing things on our own, that's where the anxiety can kick in and become chronic when we're doing everything by ourselves, not occasionally, but all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
All the time.
And I think about the strong Black woman syndrome. And I'm thinking about the fact that with that syndrome, there is a sense of obligation to stand on your own 2 feet, to be independent, to do things. And I'm sure you've heard this a lot. Oh, do you have sisters, children, adult children, friends, siblings, church family, and faith family who can help you? And the resounding answer is always, oh, they got so much going on. I'm not going to bother them. They got their own problems. They got this. I got it. I got it. I got it. And there are people there. There are people, but there's this reluctance to impose. So we would think we're imposing. It's reluctance to ask for fear of imposition on another person when we are doing more than our share out of obligation already. And I believe that comes from, for those of us who are descendants of enslaved ancestors, I believe that need to keep going, that need to be strong, that need to do whatever you got to do. Just get it done. You can do it, baby. You can do it. The rest of us do it. You can do it too. But what you're saying is that actually does not serve us well.
Not doing it alone.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't. It doesn't serve us well. It puts strain on us. And there's a stigma within the Black community that affects the way Black women seek or don't seek help for anxiety. How does that work? What is that? What's that about?
There is a stigma. I think in almost every field of endeavor, we've had challenges. We've had severe challenges. So I don't want it to appear as if this stigma has just come out of a box, right? Our experiences in the medical field, our experience in the counseling field has been challenging, right? But today there are more of us showing up because our mental health is important, right? More of us are showing up because of the injustices or the mistreatment that we have experienced. So yeah, there is a stigma, and we just talked about asking for help. We shouldn't ask for help, but that's a characteristic that oftentimes we carry alone, that we
Mm,
don't have to ask for help.
mm.
Or because
Wow.
I get I see those who I support, clients say that all the time. I have nobody that I
Mm,
can ask for help. You can't ask this.
mm.
Well, yeah, I probably could, but then their automatic thought is I cannot
I
ask.
don't I don't have anybody. There's
I
no
don't.
one there's no one who would take their time to help me, even though I'm taking my time to help everybody else.
Mhm. But if you ask their circle may be like, yeah, I have no problem helping, right? But
Hmm.
there is asking for help, and even the mental field, the mental health field, but there's a huge stigma as relates to asking for help because we should pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps and make things.
Bootstraps. Yeah,
Mhm.
even if we're barefoot. Pull
Mhm.
ourselves up by our own. But the bootstraps. Yeah. Thank you for that. Um, a lot of Black women are juggling multiple roles. I think this is a part of what you just said, right? Career and parenting, caregiving, sometimes for elders in the family. And then we have our community work or our religious-based work, of church faith work. And then we have, and this goes under parenting, I suppose, you want the best for your children. So PTA and softball and ballet and a lot anything that's available for our kids. Black women try to find those things, and all of that, juggling all of that. And it's nothing that none of those roles are roles that a person would ever want to put off on another person. We want our career, we want to be good parents, we want to be good caregivers to our parents if we are fortunate enough to have our parents as we mature. But if we're doing that at the expense of our own mental health, what are some practical ways that a counselor can help a Black woman manage anxiety while still showing up for herself? What would you say to counselors?
Say to counselors to help something as simple as meditation, yoga, journaling. You wouldn't believe taking a walk, sunshine, good music, good music. I want to emphasize good music. And of course, as a therapist, I would say seeking support as relates in therapy as well. But some
Mhm.
practical things is what are you doing for yourself? And this doesn't have to include, it could be a wonderful trip away, right? But it doesn't have to be. It could be practical things that we can do, deep breathing exercises, you know,
Yes.
just taking some time to yourself. It doesn't have to be all day. If you can do all day, wonderful. But
Right.
sometimes just mindfulness. There are things now with technology and the web we can Google what are some relaxation coping skills that we can do. But the thing is we have to do them. Also, sleep hygiene. We call it sleep hygiene now.
Ah, talk about that. Yes.
How are you preparing for bed? How are you resting? Sleeping doesn't always mean you're resting. Some of us, if you're struggling with anxiety, you're tossing and turning all night long.
Mhm.
Also, too, having oftentimes a lot of us, we go to phone with this in our hand, right?
We
Yeah.
go to bed with the phone
And
tied to us.
we're not keeping track of how much time we're spending, right? And so we want to establish a sleeping routine, something that's winding us down. I know that being on social media can be fun, but it's not wind down, right? It's not wind down. We want to try some aromatherapy at nighttime, maybe a hot shower. I'm giving some things that we can easily access, right? Lavender is one that it's common, it's not too out there. is something that's common. People, if I say lavender, people won't go, oh my gosh. Consider lavender is quite popular, and it's also quite effective as well. So actually assess, where am I and where do I want to be and how can I get there? And so things like, of course, therapy. As a therapist, I would say seek therapy. But for those,
Yes, therapy.
mhm, for those, and there are, and I want to say that the number of Black therapists, Black female therapists is steadily growing. So to find someone who looks like you is more accessible now. So just consider that. But there are plenty of things that you can do. It's a matter of doing it. And I would say pick maybe one or two things. One or two things. Don't try everything. Maybe one or two things and see how those things work for you. But also, and taking care of everyone, which is natural for us to do, what sometimes seems unnatural is including ourselves in that everyone.
Oh,
Right.
that's a powerful statement right there. Include yourself in your everyone.
Yes.
That's good. That's powerful. That's really powerful. Include, y'all get that? Tell them to include themselves in their everyone, in the everyone that they take care of. Tell your Black women who are in your practice community to include themselves. And that doesn't mean that, I think people, Black women sometimes feel that they are going to put yourself first means you're being selfish, as they see it as selfishness more than as self-care. So what I try to do is say, it doesn't mean that you are taking care of yourself at the to the expense and the neglect of others. It's just that you take care of yourself so that you can take care of others in the way that you really need to be available to them. Let me ask another. Go ahead, please.
Charge our battery. If that helps, we have to recharge our battery in order to care for other people. Because if we're on low, just like our phones, then we're not as effective if we have a full battery. So we have to recharge.
You have to recharge. Absolutely. What message would you like to leave with those who have Black women in their practice community and Black women themselves who may not be therapists, but who are listening and feel like they have to do it all and have it all together while silently struggling with anxiety?
I think you said something that's key. We silently struggle. But we've talked about millions of people experiencing anxiety. You are not alone. You are not alone. Just do a quick Google search on how many people struggle with anxiety. How many Black people struggle with anxiety? How many Black women struggle with anxiety? You are not alone. So we don't have to isolate. If you do want to seek counseling, what I love about modern technology is we can do it over the phone now. I know I grew up in a small town, so if you went to the counselor's office, everyone knew where you were going because you went to that particular building. Right. Now, no one has to know, right? Because you can do it right there on your phone. A lot of people who I support my clients, they do it on their lunch hour in their car. No one knows what they're doing. So the important part is to know that you are not alone, right? There are many of us who are here to help you as well. So if you need help, strength also includes assessing your situation and knowing when to get support.
Yeah. And let me add something else to this too. This comes to mind that with the history of marginalization and oppression that women of color have experienced, I have seen, and tell me if you can agree with this, just putting this out there. I have seen women present with anxiety today who don't make connections. They don't connect their anxiety today with their history of abuse or oppression in a society that has not been appreciative of their identity. Do you see that? Do you see anxiety presentations that when you really do the right kind of assessment, you can tie it to something historical that may still need to be addressed? Do you see that?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Oftentimes, it is something from our history or from our past that is contributing to the anxiety. We often call them, you're often triggered, right?
Triggers.
Triggers. It's often triggers from something that's happened in your past, either in your present past or in epigenetics.
Mhm.
Epigenetics also too. In epigenetics, it's the study of how past generations impact current generations.
Yeah.
And I recently learned that I think your great grandmother, the trauma that she
Yes.
experiences still impacts you today, according to the study of, am I saying the right epigenetics, right?
Epigenetics.
Epigenetics.
Epigenetics. Yes.
So it's important, just like when we go to the doctor and they ask us about our family history, often
Right.
they may only go back one generation, but when it
Right.
comes to our mental capacity and our mental health, that goes back at least
Three
three
generations.
generations. At least
Yep.
three generations
Yep.
you are currently impacted today, March
Yes.
7th, 2025. You have
Yes.
been impacted by what happened to grandmother or grandfather.
Exactly. And even great grandmother. I've read statistics that the research was based off of descendants of Holocaust survivors. And what they found was that 3 and 4 generations later, post Holocaust, those descendants of Holocaust survivors still have altered stress hormone profiles. Stress hormone profiles still altered. The Holocaust did not last, fortunately, 400 years, as did slavery.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you imagine the compound effect on the stress hormones of Black women who are descendants of enslaved ancestors? That's what we don't know about. And then there are the things that we do know about, the things that happened when I was in school, the things that happened when she had to integrate, was the first child to integrate an all-Black school. Right now, there's a Ruby Bridges movie out, but there are a lot of little Ruby Bridges who weren't the first in the nation, but they were the first in their county.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
those women right about now are like my age because they were in elementary school in the 1960s or high school in the 1960s. And they were the first. They didn't have federal marshals like Ruby Bridges did in Louisiana to escort her. But change may be difficult and cause anxiety because you've been through something where you had to cross a racial boundary that was unwelcome. There can be all kinds of things in one's history. You may have seen a family member, an elder, being abused or mistreated in a particular place, and that's left a scar. It's
Mm-hmm.
left its mark on you. So there may be certain places or certain things that trigger anxiety for you. And what happens, Tamika, if a clinician is not astute enough to ask about a person's history of oppression and racism? And that's if that's really the cause of the anxiety, what's going to happen there?
We missed the boat.
You
We
miss it.
we miss the boat if we don't consider historical aspects. We
Mhm.
absolutely hit the boat. And if we're talking about history, also present day, the things that we experience and the things that we see now we're more exposed to a lot of stuff, right? We're more
Yeah.
exposed. So if we don't look at that historical component, because oftentimes we're taught to what? Get over it.
Get over it. Move on.
To
That's
get
in the past.
over it. And
Mm-mm.
we may say something like, well, that stuff didn't impacted me. But
Mm.
yet, when it comes to heart disease, we're number one. when it comes to stroke, when it comes to a number of diseases, we're
Mhm.
number one, right? So we
Yeah.
may not associate the rate of diseases in our community with anxiety and these things, but
Mhm.
a lot of that stuff for us is psychosomatic,
Mhm.
meaning that
And it's also physical. It's
Mhm.
also very, very physical. And you spoke of epigenetics. We inherit those stress hormone profiles and we inherit those stress patterns based on the level of stress in our ancestors' environment. We're wired for what they experienced. So, a lot of times, this is going beyond just anxiety, but a lot of times you hear that, well, being Black makes you more susceptible to certain things. And the reality is, race is not the problem, it's the impact of racism that's the problem.
Absolutely. It's the number one issue when it comes to us experiencing, especially in the workplace.
Hmm.
One of the number one issues is racism. And again, we
Hmm.
become isolated and think it's only happening to us. It's not only happening to us. When we start vocalizing and giving this a voice, and of course some of us have, but I'm talking about on a more local level. You may think this is only happening to you, but it's not.
It's not. It's
It's
not
not.
just you.
It's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
No, when your concerns aren't addressed, but everyone else's is, you're never getting promoted, or for whatever reason. But you're training people. You train people who get promoted over you.
You train them to do the job that they say you can't do.
Exactly. Or those you train are getting promoted.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, really? Yeah. So that environment, that work
Yeah.
environment, that
It's,
workplace racism plays a huge impact on our
it's huge.
anxiety.
It's huge. Yeah. As you mentioned, and this will be my last question. I think I said that before. I'm sounding like a preacher now. I'm going to close in just a minute. But as I close, let me say this, that the times in which we're living right now are filled with uncertainty,
Mhm.
absolutely filled with a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of angst, a lot of worry, a lot of stress. What can a person do? You mentioned sleep hygiene and meditation and whatnot.
Mhm.
In terms of self-representation, is there a role for self-representation in managing anxiety? Or is that more of a personal choice? I think a lot of people are feeling like I'm on edge. I don't know what to do. I feel like I should do something. I should do more. I don't know what to do. My voice isn't going to be heard. Maybe I should just let somebody else say it. I'm not a speaker. I'm not. What do you believe about personal and collective advocacy in stressful times for the management of anxiety?
I would say recognizing it, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes, again, we talk about with sometimes when it comes to us, it's a matter of just let's just get through it, right? Let's
Yeah.
get over, right? Just ain't nothing wrong with you, girl. Um, but if you're noticing that things are different for you, like you are always on edge, you are always experiencing some type of physical angst, and the doctor does. And we do want to go to the doctor first, right? And the
Mhm.
doctor saying, I don't know, I don't see anything wrong. Advocate for yourself. Get that support. Even if you want to get a consultation from a therapist, get
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Establish a voice, because many of us were taught that we shouldn't have a voice.
Hmm.
In our upbringing, we do not have a voice. But now is the time, it's a perfect time to begin establishing a voice and speaking up for yourself.
Yes. Thank you. Tamika, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. Now, you do workshops for continuing education credits for professional counselors. Tell us about some of the topics that are related to this that you cover.
One of the things that I want to do is raise awareness about the Black maternal health crisis. So next Friday, I am giving a webinar, a live webinar, called Baby Bumps and in the Dumps, right? We are
Okay.
exploring postpartum in Black women. So that's
Okay.
next Friday at 9. And if you want to, if you're interested, you can go to my website, which is thecouragetocope.com. And also too on what is it? April 2nd. Another one, what we've been talking about today. We're going to be analyzing unique characteristics of anxiety in women. These are all CE credits as well.
Mhm.
I'll have some workshops coming from the general public, but right
Mhm.
now the workshops are on Black maternal health, that crisis, and
Okay.
also to exploring unique characteristics of how anxiety is manifested in Black women.
Excellent, excellent. And these are NBCC approved,
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
So
3 credits.
these
So
these these are 3 credits, and it doesn't matter what state you're in, these are NBCC approved workshops. And this may not air until after this next round of these 2 dates that you've given us, but you're going to repeat these throughout the year, right?
absolutely. If you go to my website,
Okay.
the dates are already listed out there
Excellent.
for the
Okay.
workshop and a direction on how to register for the workshops as well. So I welcome everyone
Okay.
to join us to raise this awareness.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining in today and sharing in this conversation, even if only by listening. It means a lot that you tuned in for this important topic. I am Laverne Haynes Collins. I'm signing off for now, but always remember, keep practicing with humility, empathy, and a multicultural mindset. Bye for now.